Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be starting chapter 19 in your book. And chapter 19 is called Connectives that Express Cause and Effect, Contrast, and Condition. Basically, when it says connectives, it means words that show the connection between ideas. If that's not clear, don't worry. It's going to become clear as we talk more about it. If you'd like to see a summary of the ideas that are presented in chapter 19, you can see it on the next page, page 405, in chart 19.1. And that gives a list of all of the connective words that we're going to be looking at in chapter 19. And it gives you a quick summary of all of them. So it would probably be a good idea before you start the chapter to take a look at chart 19.1 and just see, are there any of those that you don't feel like you know 100%? Or maybe something is completely new to you. If something is new to you, or you don't think that, well, I kind of know it, but I'm not completely sure, then it would probably be a good idea for you to pay special attention when we go over those. Okay, so today we're going to be starting with chart 19.2, because of and due to. So let's talk about those. Let's talk about because of first. Because of, very similar to because. Let's talk about how they're similar and how they're different. Let's take a look here. Joan arrived at work because the traffic was heavy, okay? And so something that you know is because means that this thing causes this thing. So if I call this A and this is B, the traffic was heavy caused Joan to arrive late at work. So the traffic was heavy was the cause, and Joan arrived late at work is the result or the effect. Okay. Now, something else about because is, when I use because, let me erase this, I will always use because plus a subject plus a verb. Okay? So, when I use because, I'm always going to have a subject and a verb after it. So I could say, I was hungry because I didn't eat dinner. Because I, subject, didn't eat, verb. I was hungry because I didn't eat dinner. Or I might say, I couldn't call you because I forgot my cell phone. And again, because, and then subject I, and verb got. So whenever I use because, it's going to be because plus subject plus verb. Now, one more thing about because, just to remind you. Words like because, when they join sentences, they work like this. They can come in the middle, and I can say, Joan arrived at work late because, in the middle, the traffic was heavy. Or I can switch those and go like this and say, because the traffic was heavy, with because at the beginning, because the traffic was heavy, comma, Joanne arrived late to work. Both are fine. The because clause can come at the beginning or it can come at the end. Doesn't change the meaning, and both are perfectly correct. If because comes at the beginning, I use a comma. Okay. Now let's look at because of. Joan arrived at work late, and let's say because of. The first thing that I want to tell you about because of is, because of means exactly the same thing as because. So the meaning is the same, but we use them differently. So let's talk about how we use them differently. Remember what I said, that because, when I use because, I'll have because plus subject plus verb. So because of is different, because when I use because of, I'll use because of plus noun, no verb. So let's take a look at an example. I could say, Joan arrived to work late because of the heavy traffic. So here I have because of plus a noun, the heavy traffic, or a noun phrase if you are really a grammar person. So because is followed by subject and verb, because of is followed by noun, but these two sentences mean the same thing. Joan arrived at work because the traffic was heavy. Joan arrived at work because of the heavy traffic. They mean the same thing. So first thing to remember is because plus subject plus verb, and also I use because of with just a noun, no verb. Okay, I'll pause just a second, let you take that in, or you can pause the video. One more thing to tell you about because of. Remember that when I use because, I can switch the two clauses around. I can say, Joanne arrived late to work because the traffic was heavy, or I can go and say, because the traffic was heavy, comma, Joanne arrived late to work. Both ways are good. I can do the same thing with because of. I can say, Joan arrived late to work because of the heavy traffic, or I can switch them and say, because of the heavy traffic, comma, Joan arrived late to work. Let me put that up on the board. So, oh, arrived at work late. Okay. Okay. So both of these are absolutely correct. Because of can come in the middle. Because of can come at the beginning. If because of comes at the beginning, I use a comma. If because of comes in the middle, no comma. And remember, the same is true of because. If because comes in the middle, no comma. If because comes in the beginning, I use a comma. Let me write because on the board too, just to be completely thorough and clear. So I can say Joanne arrived at work because the traffic was heavy, or I could say because the traffic was heavy, comma. Remember, when because comes at the beginning, I use a comma. Joanne arrived at work late. Okay? So, to sum up quickly, let's go over the points that we've learned. Because and because of mean the same thing. Because of is followed by subject and verb. Because of is followed by a noun. Because can come in the middle of a sentence or at the beginning. If it comes in the middle, if it comes at the beginning, I use a comma. Because of works the same way. Because of can come in the middle of the sentence, or it can come at the beginning. If it comes in the beginning, I use a comma. Okay. Now, there are three more things, I think, that I want to tell you about. One is in your book, one is not in your book, and one disagrees with your book. So, let me tell you what the first one is, the one that's in your book. So to do that, let me do some erasing here. Okay. So, your book says, and this is the way that most Americans talk, If I use because of plus a noun, I could also use due to. And your book says that these two mean the same thing. And they are used the same way. So I have because of followed by a noun. I have due to followed by a noun. I can say Joan arrived at work late because of the heavy traffic. I can say Joan arrived to work late due to the heavy traffic, and the meaning is the same. Okay, so that's a point that your book makes. Due to means the same as because of. I want to tell you, this is the second thing, the thing that's not in your book. If you get a very old-fashioned grammar teacher, and I mean a very old-fashioned grammar teacher, a very old-fashioned grammar teacher will tell you that due to and because of are not used the same way. Due to can only come after the verb be. So someone might say, let's see here, I could say, John's problems were due to, so notice John's problems were, verb be, due to a lack of money. Or I might say, the hot weather is be due to global warming. The hot weather is be due to global warming. So an old-fashioned grammar teacher will say, you can only use due to after the verb be. But most Americans don't talk that way anymore. In fact, probably very few Americans talk that way anymore. But just so you know, if you happen to get a very old-fashioned grammar teacher. So I'm not going to put that on the board because I don't think it's that important that you really remember it. But there is one more thing that your book says. So, your book, and this is where I disagree with your book. Your book suggests that you can use due to the fact that plus subject plus verb. So due to the fact that and plus subject plus verb. Let me write this up on the board. Let me write an example sentence on the board. So this would be a sentence that like this. Joanne arrived late to work, and then I'd say due to the fact that plus subject plus verb. And I would say Joanne arrived late to the work due to the fact that the traffic subject verb was heavy. Okay? So, here I have, because the traffic, and then verb was heavy. So, your book says you can use the words due to the fact that plus subject and verb, and it means the same. In fact, you might notice I use because plus subject plus verb. I can say due to the fact that plus subject and verb. And you say that to an American, and they will mean the same in the American's mind. Okay? So, your book tells you that. I want to tell you something that disagrees with your book. I'm going to suggest don't use due to the fact that. I know your book teaches it, but let me tell you why I don't like it. I was raised, I was taught when I was in school and in college, and I think it's a good way, is never use more words than you need to. If you can say the same idea as clearly and exactly with one word, use one word. Don't use many words. That to me, that was how I was taught. That was what I was taught, was good writing. It shows that you're a master of your writing if you can say something that's relatively complicated or deep, but you don't have to use many, many words. If you can say what you want to say very clearly with fewer words, that's far better than using many words. Notice that due to the fact that means the same as because. Joan arrived late to work late because the traffic was heavy. Joan arrived late to work due to the fact the traffic was heavy. The meaning is the same, but this one uses one word, and this one uses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one uses 5 words to say what you can say equally clearly with one. And so my suggestion is, don't use due to the fact that. Use because. It's clearer and it's simpler. And that is everything I have to tell you about Chart 19.2.